Tribes are not the most prominent aspect of Game of Thrones in the books, but every now and then a small piece of world building is dropped, fleshing out the many diverse groups of people of Westeros, which is only one of the 4 known continents on this map. Out of all the 7 kingdoms in Westeros and all the other regions here, 3 locations continue to have a massive tribal culture. The North, the Vale, and beyond the Wall, all cold and mountainous regions. It isn't like there's only one tribe per location either, there's a bunch. But each region's tribe culture shares distinct characteristics. The northern mountain clans are relatively respectable and sophisticated, nothing like the mountain clans of the Vale, who are your typical violent savages who attack anyone in sight. The wildling tribes are a mixed bag. Some may stay to themselves and not harm you, while others may eat you or take your daughters. The Fens are one of the good ones. This group shares their name with a hidden mountain valley way up in the north. They're likely the northernmost humans in this world, living in the peaks of the massive mountain range beyond the wall called the Frostfangs. The Fens believe they are the last First Men. 12,000 years before the story begins, the first group of humans to migrate from Essos to Westeros by foot were called the First Men. The second wave of humans from Essos were the Andals, who essentially took over Westeros with their vast numbers and superior weapons. There are some houses scattered here and there that descend from First Men, but almost everyone in the north and beyond the wall are descendants of First Men, who still follow their old gods. The Fens take it a step further by continuing to speak the Old Tongue, a language long forgotten in the 7 kingdoms, but common beyond the wall. The same language the giants speak, which allows the Fens and giants to have somewhat of a decent relationship. Fens are very disciplined, obediently following all of their leaders' orders. Their chieftain is called a Magnar, and view him like a god, instead of just a leader. Following someone else's orders isn't something you normally see beyond the wall, since the majority value their freedom over everything. Being led by one Magnar allows them to be more organized and makes for a better army. They had to leave their hidden valley after the initial attack by the White Walkers. Mance Rayder was only able to become their king beyond the wall by defeating the Magnar 3 times in battle. While all the wildlings, even those who take up residence in villages, are only armed with weapons of wood and stone, the Fens are better equipped with bronze and leather. In similar fashion to the First Men warriors, who are ultimately outdone by the Andals of steel and iron. The main motive for wildling raids before the White Walkers was to steal the Southerners' better weapons and armor. Game of Thrones depicted the Fens to be cannibal savages, but that couldn't be further from the books.
Fens. I fucking hate Fens.
Why does the meat down here taste so much better than it does on our side of the wall?
The real cannibals are the Ice River clans. Ice River is an actual river located right here, and this tribe makes their home around it. Before Mance united all the free folk, the Ice River cannibals were warring with their neighbors of the frozen shore. This tribe sticks to the coast, where they can do their fishing. The men of the frozen shore are known for their dog sleds, made out of huge walrus bones. Animals are a pretty big part of their culture. Within this tribe, there are actually different factions that don't get along, one wearing antlers on their heads, and the other walrus tusks. The leaders of the walrus faction is called the Great Walrus, so maybe the other leader is the Great Reindeer or something, since it is stated that they breed them. It doesn't seem like they worship the old gods, instead they have their own snow and ice gods. Jon meets all these different tribes of people when in the wildling camps of Mance Rayder. The Night Riders, who are known to quarrel with the Hornfoots. These 2 clans live in undisclosed locations beyond the wall. The Hornfoot men choose to live their lives with their feet completely exposed to the brutal elements. With his own eyes, Jon had beheld the Hornfoot men trotting along in column on bare soles as hard as boiled leather. They are also known for their long spears they use in battle. Within the caves of the Frostfangs surrounding Fen, lives a group of tribes called Cave Dwellers. For some reason, they dye their faces blue, purple, and green. Their teeth are filed to be sharp, and it's believed they worship dark underground gods. The Cave Dwellers may be the last named tribe beyond the wall, but there's also mention in the World of Ice and Fire of tribes living along a peninsula called Sterl's Point, who oddly enough worship crab gods. The World of Ice and Fire supplementary book also states that there are countless tribes and clans scattered beyond the wall. With no further mention of tribe names or descriptions, I should probably move on to the northern mountain clans. There's roughly 40 tribes in the north, with only 7 expanded upon in the books. They all live in the vast mountain range called the Northern Mountains. It's north of Winterfell and south of the Wall, in this western area here. All of the tribes have their own chief, who serve under the Lord of Winterfell. So far, they seem to be pretty loyal to the Starks. The Northern Lords consider the clansmen to be petty lords and refer to each tribe as a house. They even have their own sigil, but the tribes don't view themselves in the same light. They're just mountain clansmen who live a simpler life, the same way their ancestors did thousands of years ago in the same location. The most powerful tribe being the Wolves, who have the most men. There's the Norries, Burleys, Harkleys, Littles, and Knots. The Flints are the last named tribe, and are pretty interesting. During the cruel winters in the north, food can become pretty scarce, so older men leave their homes saying they're going out hunting to rarely return. They do this in order to reduce the risk of their family starving. Younger sons of the chief of House Flint managed to find food, lands, and wives outside the mountain ranges. And now a few cadet branches can be found throughout the north, no longer living as mountain clansmen. The original House of Flint of the mountains are now commonly referred to as the First Flints. Ned Stark's grandmother was actually a member of this clan. Her name was Arya Flint. It's who our Arya Stark is named after. Old Nan would tell Bran that it was Arya Flint of the mountain that made Bran such an obsessive climber before his fall. Her blood is running through his veins. All of the mountain clans call their chief by the tribe's name, so the Flint chief would be called the Flint, or the Wool's chief would be just called the Wool. Even though they have their own sigils and are respected houses in their own rights, there's no my lord here. They even refer to their Stark lord similarly, calling Ned Stark the Ned. As civilized as they are, some quarrels do break out between tribes that requires intervention by the Starks. And they aren't as isolated as you think. During times of a wildling or Ironborn raid, they need to come together and work with the Night's Watch or the Starks to put down the invaders. Constant attacks from enemies have instilled a warrior-like culture within the mountain tribes. Combining that with the tough terrain makes them an intimidating bunch. And then there's the Vale mountain clans. Couldn't be further from the ones in the north, other than they both live in mountains. The tribes in the Vale make their home in the foothills of the Mountains of the Moon. They make traveling through this region far more dangerous than it needs to be. Characters already have to worry about rock slides and shadow cats. Why add another threat of an ambush? The high road cuts through the mountains and takes travelers all the way up to House Aaron's home of the Eyrie. And this is where the desperate and poor clans make their move, attacking any ill-guarded visitor, at times risking it all by attacking members of House Aaron. They take any possession they deem valuable, so weapons, armor, food, and women. Villages throughout the Vale also have to deal with their raids, though their primitive weapons don't make them a serious threat. The mountain clans are descendants of the First Men, who fled the first Andal invasion in the Vale around 6,000 years ago. This kingdom was hit the hardest, since it was where the Andals first landed their ships from Essos. The mountain clansmen's ancestors decided to never bend the knee and reject their rule. All of them believe that everyone's voice should be heard and considered during councils, regardless of gender. It's not uncommon to have a female chief, a fairly progressive custom considering how violent and primitive they are. The World in Ice and Fire names 10 of the most notorious mountain clans, but also state that there are smaller tribes that often assimilate or are wiped out by the Knights of the Vale. There's the Howlers, the Painted Dogs, the Milk Snakes, the Moon Brothers, the Redsmiths, Sons of the Mist, Sons of the Tree, the Black Ears, that get their name from their custom of cutting off the ears of men they defeat in battle as war trophies. They leave the earless men alive as an insult. The current female chief has 46 ears collected and believes it's braver to leave the defeated alive, proving you don't fear your enemies. Yeah, some wild stuff. And these tribes do fight often. In the current story, the Black Ears don't get along with another tribe called the Stone Crows. The raiders that approached Tyrion and Bronn on their way out of the Vale were men of the Stone Crows.
When you meet your gods, you tell them Shagga, son of Dolph, of the Stone Crows sent you.
The mountain clans of the Vale have that tradition with their names. Instead of a last name, they just state who their father was, after stating their own name. The Stone Crow chief, I think he's the chief, it's not really stated, goes by Shagga, son of Dolph. But the whole reason I wanted to make this video was because of this next tribe called the Burned Men, the most feared by the rest of the clans, and likely the rest of the Vale. I was originally only going to talk about the wildling tribes because of how diverse they were, but I can't help but always bring up this bit of lore about a Targaryen dragon. In the middle of a Targaryen civil war, about 107 years before the story begins, a homeless girl named Nettles was able to tame one of the riderless Targaryen dragons in order to be granted lands and titles. She did this by feeding the dragon sheep every morning, since it had the name of Sheepstealer for its reputation of having a taste for the animal. After taming the beast, the 16-year-old Nettles participated in the war, but would soon flee in the direction of the Vale. An army happened to come across them in a cave, leading to the death of 16 men and more injured. Nettles clearly didn't want to be found, so she once again flew off on Sheepstealer, this time deeper into the mountains of the moon. No one truly knows what became of her, but it's hinted that some of the men of the Painted Dogs tribe began to worship her as their fire witch, forming a new tribe called the Burning Men. They would begin bringing them gifts and burning themselves to show their courage. To this day, the Burn Men have this tradition of burning off a body part of their choosing in a coming-of-age ceremony. The more important the body part burned off is, the bigger show of fearlessness. This tradition and their lack of fear is what makes them the most feared out of all the mountain clans. Their chief is called a Red Hand, and the current Red Hand is a young man who recently burned his eye out with a hot knife, instantly earning the entire tribe's respect without doing much else. But he has since proven to be a threat in the Vale once he got his hands on some real weapons. In the past, the Burn Men have kidnapped the daughter of House Aaron, which isn't too crazy for these violent tribes. The Painted Dogs have killed an Aaron king, and the Stonecrows were crazy enough to kill the brothers and father of a Lady of the Eyrie. Yeah, they're not that different from the Wildlings. So 10 named tribes in the Vale, even more than the 7 out of 40 named in the north, and the 7 out of countless beyond the wall. And this is just one continent. Westeros is where the bulk of the story takes place, and all the extra lore is written from the perspective of a Westerosi. Things get more mysterious the further east you go. The people that inhabit the southern continent, Sothurios, are essentially cavemen. And the last continent, Uthos, is a blank slate, and will likely stay that way to illustrate how massive this world is, and how little the people of Westeros know. Hope you guys enjoyed this one all about tribes. I've been meaning to bring up a little bit of new info on Nettles and Sheepstealer we got from the 2018 supplementary book, Fire and Blood, that mentions Nettles coming across an army while exiling herself in that cave. But anyways, I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for watching.